to be trying to match that speed or to outspeed. So it could even just be a situation of a setup, a tailwind, and this, I mean, Garchomp can deal out so much damage. This Dragonite can deal so much damage, and you don't have a way to match the speed or mitigate that damage.
Yeah, there's no Aurora Veil or Icy Wind on this Ninetales on Benny's side. Speaking of speed, right away, we do have the Whimsicott and Golden Go hitting the field, and I think a really strong matchup for them into this Sneasler Ninetales because you do have the Terra Ghost on the Whimsicott. If you want, go straight for that Terra Ghost Tailwind, and you get a huge Make It Rain off right off the bat.
And some meta adaptations that we've gotten to see is Sneasler is a little bit of coverage to be able to deal with this Golden Go that it wouldn't necessarily appreciate otherwise. And this one, we have the Fake Out instead. There's definitely situations where that is useful for Benny, don't get me wrong. But when you're staring down this Golden Go that threatens so much, I mean, there's nothing this Sneasler could do to it.
Maybe you don't even need to go for that Terra Ghost. You can just protect the Whimsicott this turn because Ninetales and Sneasler are not going to be damaging Golden Go really at all. Like, this is not a Throat Chop Sneasler. It's Fake Out Protect with those two Close Combat and Dire Claw, same type attack bonus moves. So right off the bat, we're going to have a Golden Go that's not going to take much damage, but Terra Ghost is immediately coming out from Whimsicott.
First thought, best thought is what I'm hearing here. You know, might as well just set up and take full advantage. You already have an advantage with this lead, with this Golden Go. Might as well extend it even more. Ninetales, be starting off this match, is going to go Protect, and passive means a Tailwind is set up for free on that Whimsicott. Now we're going to get to see this Make It Rain. Powerful attack, and the Ninetales will be spared this go around. Into the Sneasler, not as much, so brought right down to Sash right away.
Huge damage off the bat. Focus Sash activates, which means Sneasler will be able to survive that Make It Rain. And Dire Claw comes through here into Whimsicott. Thanks to the Terra Ghost, it does resist instead of being double weak, and there is no activation of either Dire Claw or Poison Touch. It is in fact the Poison Touch Sneasler, so the Focus Sash activation does not activate a possible Unburden, which would allow it to outspeed these two Pokemon still. King Gambit comes in here, will be able to stomach a Make It Rain pretty well, but still has to take a Moonblast for its trouble too.
Especially looking at this Golden Go, this is going to be the choice spec set. So this is a Golden Go that now is not locked into Make It Rain. These are going to be powerful Make It Rains for at least the short future here. But special attack drop onto the King Gambit. You deal some damage, but you're also giving over an attack boost. Follow up, Make It Rain. Again, this is going to be a resisted hit, but this is the King Gambit without the Assault Vest, but kind of feels like it has one evolved at this point.
I mean, that's scary. The King Gambit with that Defiant should be able to threaten some really strong Sucker Punches here, especially considering Golden Go cannot Terrastalize. You don't have a way to remove that Dark type weakness, and because it is the choice spec set, probably not very bulky. It's probably trained mostly in speed and special attack, which means Sucker Punch now threatens a KO into either slot thanks to Whimsicott's Focus Sash being broken by the Dire Claw earlier on. Really nice switch from Benny there. Of course, the Moonblast special attack drop is an added bonus, but even without that, the Black Glasses is probably enough for a KO on either target, and you know that it can take a Moonblast plus Make It Rain combo and keep that Pokemon score even.
Where it gets weird with the Sucker Punch games, though, is, of course, the other Pokemon has to be ready in an attack. The Golden Go with the Choice Spec is going to be locked in, but it can go ahead and just swap out, and if it is that Sucker Punch into that slot, well, then the attack boost just means absolutely nothing in the end. The first swap, that will be the Rillaboom for that Sneasler. The Sneasler on the 1 HP, good opportunity to swap it out and bring something else into play as no swap, but also no Sucker Punch. Benny opting to Protect instead. Protect
here pretty safe. Often you don't really want to Protect in front of a Whimsicott, but because King Gambit is a Dark type, it will be immune to that Prankster Encore. And now you have the option to see if Gio did want to possibly swap out either of his Pokemon, did opt to just stay on the field there, go for the Moonblast into King Gambit and the Make It Rain. And because of the -2 special attack, Rillaboom takes that very well. Now Golden goes stuck on the field at -3.
It is at the -3, which I'm still then thinking of, like, when are you switching this out? Because at some point, this damage is not necessarily the greatest here. But if Gio wants to have it sticking around, then again, it does open the door for that Sucker Punch, and that is going to be the dangerous thing. And when we do have this Tailwind that was set up right away, it is a Tailwind that is slowly but surely dwindling. So if Benny can find a way to get rid of this Whimsicott when that expires, then we can have an even playing field for the speed.
I also think that U-turn on Rillaboom is really big here. If you do want to possibly go for a U-turn into that Golden Go, maybe scout out what Gio maybe wants to swap into that slot, leaving a -3 Golden Go on the field is not the greatest just because you're still lowering your own special attack and doing not much damage in the process. And U-turn allows you to see what happens, pivot out into a possibly stronger matchup later on.
So that is finally going to be the pivot. Golden Go leaves. So that'll be a special attack reset when it comes back in, and a Whimsicott Whimsicott that is protecting. So Benny, Sucker Punch, no matter where it goes, is going to be null and void for this turn. Woodhammer into the Sneasler, though, freshly swapped in.
Oof.
Not very effective, but still bringing it down to about 1/3 of its health.
And that might just be Sucker Punch range from this King Gambit, thanks to that Black Glasses and Defiant boost. It's going to be cool to see how Benny plays this, though. I really love that Protect on Geo's end. Because this Tailwind now is petering out, there's no way that Benny can prevent a second Tailwind going up, because like you said, Sucker Punch only works if they are readying a damaging attack, and Tailwind, if you didn't know, Sierra, does not do any damage.
Does it not?
No.
Oh, no.
That's some new info.
That's a free Tailwind. No, that's going to be definitely something that's nice here. And Whimsicott, since you do have the other utility, even past that, and not necessarily threatened by something like the Woodhammer, be fine. It does have the U-turn maybe later. Oh, no, we got the Terastallization, so any hit into that's going to be fine coming out for the Rillaboom. But regardless, we will see a Tailwind. But from the King Gambit, if you can just preserve it and be able to get a couple of these Sucker Punch mind games right at some point, then it's going to be a Tailwind that maybe won't matter, at least for that slot.
Exactly. Without Tailwind, you know, there's no need for any worrying about priority and whatnot. Sucker Punch comes through here, though, does KO the Sneasler thanks to those boosts despite the resistance. But Grassy Glide missing the KO and Whimsicott means that it will get the chance to move this turn and go straight for the Moonblast. The Sucker Punch would have worked, and King Gambit survives.
It gets another special attack drop. So this King Gambit, that is now so much attack that it has, as well as the Black Glasses. So anything coming on in would not appreciate a Sucker Punch. Geo can, in fact, go for something like with this turn, but since it already was taking so much damage, a Grassy Glide would actually be able to go ahead and pick up that KO, possibly.
Grassy Glide probably is enough, and Sucker Punch does not work if Dragonite does opt to go for extreme speed. Thanks to the King Gambit taking so much damage already, you might have been able to mitigate all of those attack boosts from Defiant with one extreme speed. Obviously, you can't Terastallize the Dragonite to get those same type attack bonus on extreme speed, but the King Gambit is not Terra Ghost, it's Terra Fire, so you can't even Terastallize that to dodge any kind of extreme speed damage. So I think you're kind of okay in terms of King Gambit not just Sucker Punching you into oblivion, but you still have to worry about the Rillaboom, and of course the Ninetales in the back.
It's going to be a Whimsicott that protects on this turn, knowing that there is this possible threat. And maybe if the Dragonite, only not wanting to go for the King Gambit, can try and get rid of the Rillaboom instead, protect for each of these players. Instead, it will be that extreme speed lock, wanting to try and get rid of this King Gambit sooner rather than later, as we're just going to go 1-for-1 on these priority attacks.
Yep, priority attacks trading into protects here. I think that's smart on Geo's end, just to get a little bit of terrain recovery on that Whimsicott. The Terra Ghost Whimsicott is something that has paid off very well here because it stuck around a long time. It blasted the entire Tailwind and a couple turns after that, and that's something that if you're running that Whimsicott can actually be a huge benefit. Oftentimes your game plans can rely on Whimsicott going down pretty quickly after that Tailwind is set up, but Geo will have the chance to set up a second Tailwind, which will allow the Golden Goat to attack before the Ninetales on Benny's side and clear it out of the way with a possible Make It Rain to make sure it doesn't just Blizzard this Dragonite and one-hit KO it.
Been delaying the Tailwind a lot too, and because we had talked a couple turns ago possibly going for it, but if we had seen it then, we actually would be at a game situation where that Tailwind would be done in about a turn, but maybe saving it for a situation such as now, and also having a little bit of recovery more could mean that it could survive a Grassy Glide and be able to set it up for this late game. Extreme speed, of course, Dragonite locked into that. Sneasler on the swap in will be get KO'd. No Grassy Glide either, so Whimsicott, no risk of being KO'd. Finally, speed back again on Giovanni's end. Grassy Glide, finally just a little bit of it that go up there and goes down.
So that now is a Pokemon advantage for Benny. It is 3-2 in his favor, but you still have the Golden Goat with Choice Specs, you still have the Choice Band Dragonite, both, I believe, at full HP, and this King Gambit on Benny's side is still pretty low. I think that's still range for a Choice Band Extreme Speed, despite the Steel typing. I think the Ninetale is going to be a very important Pokemon for Benny going forward, though, especially because you do still have your Terastallization active. You can Terra away from a weakness to the Make It Rain, and because it is the Ghost type, if you can actually knock out this Golden Go, Dragonite will no longer have a way to damage the Ninetales because it is locked into that normal move Extreme Speed.
And that's the dangerous part with this Dragonite. And sure, this Choice Band's allowing you to do so much more damage, and the other Pokemon are definitely at a great risk of that. but Benny has held on to it for that terrestrializing initiation for so long. So Gio definitely has to make sure to be careful here, but when we've seen this Protect coming on by, won't even be able to go for the KO. And really just nice scouting anyways, because the Golden Go, you did have to pick a move on this turn to lock into, and now you have this information. Make it rain, going on forward. A lot into the Rillaboom. Of course, that is going to be a special attack that falls after these turns. U-turn is said not very effective, but a free swap now into that Alolan Ninetales.
I love the U-turn there too, because now you get Ninetales in. You can terrestrialize it into that Ghost type, which means you remove the double weakness to Make It Rain. Because the Make It Rain already went off once, you are probably able to survive one when you were a Ghost type because you're just no longer weak, and the Golden Goat is now at -1. Of course, it is still choice spec, so it will probably do a good chunk of damage. But because Rillaboom U-turns there, you have the option to swap the King Gambit out, and make sure that it's not going to get extreme speeded by this Dragonite. And as long as Ninetales gets a Blizzard off this turn, King Gambit can then come back in and Sucker Punch the Golden Goat for the win.
Yeah, this Dragonite on the opposing end, when you don't have Terrestrialization, is not going to appreciate an Ice-type move whatsoever. And finally, in the final moments of this match, we'll finally get to see Benny click that Terrestrialization button into the Ghost type. Again, now this cannot be attacked by that extreme speed as well. You're losing that weakness to the Make It Rains coming out from this -1 Golden Go. Extreme speed instead into the Rillaboom, so Dragonite will still get to accomplish something on this turn, bringing Benny down to 2 Pokemon. Now, Make It Rain. This is going to be single target, -1, but choice specs a lot of damage. But Ninetales is going to be able to hold on and fire off a Blizzard in return. Nothing essentially to the Golden Go, but Dragonite will go down.
The single target aspect of it worried me for a second there, Sierra. I thought maybe the choice specs kind of offsetting the lack of damage from the double targeting might have been enough for still kind of picking up that KO into Ninetales, but thankfully for Benny, it was able to hang on, get off that crucial Blizzard, and now a Sucker Punch will be able to win the game for Benny and put him at a 1-0 lead in our first quarterfinal match.
All of these choice item moves, and that's a tough position to be in at these points. Of course, there's the payoff for a reason. On this turn, though, just go ahead and double protect this one.
I mean, it makes some sense there, right? On the off chance that your Sucker Punch doesn't KO, this gives your King Gambit one more turn of Grassy Terrain recovery, and it will allow it to maybe survive and Make It Rain here. Of course, Tailwind might be ending as well, so you're giving your Ninetales the chance to attack with a Blizzard into that Golden Go once again. Also, just find yourself maybe a little bit more time to start thinking about some Game 2 game plans, right? Of course, you have this Game 1 pretty much sealed up against Gio, but Gio, being the champion that he is, probably already has some plans to mix it up in terms of either Pokemon selected or strategy for this second game. So now the Sucker Punch will come through and KOs the Golden Go, confirming that Benny Vasquez wins Game 1.
Up 1 in the series after a well-fought match, and 1 more away from securing a spot in top 4. We had talked about so far in his career that this is the best performance, and up 1 has a chance to up that. And a really clean series as well. I mean, looking back, there was so much pressure from this King Gambit, and there was also a couple turns where I feel like a Sucker Punch, it could have ended it, but playing really safe and still finding that key to victory in a way that you weren't necessarily punished if Gio had maybe called that Sucker Punch.
There's some give and take with King Gambit for sure. Sucker Punch is a very threatening move because it is, acting agnostic of any kind of speed boost or tailwinds or paralysis or anything like that. But you do have to worry about someone trying to dance around it with those status moves like a Tailwind, like an Encore from that Whimsicott, or even a Protect. And now that when you do finally get these Sucker Punches off, like this one into Sneasler, this was a big moment because Sneasler was really the main thing threatening this King Gambit for the remainder of this game.
And when we did get to see the final in the end of the game, the Sucker Punch onto the Golden Go, it was one that was just so safe because earlier on there was that window of opportunity, and Gio did end up leaving the Golden Go in, but had that been a swap and you did invest that turn into going for that Sucker Punch, it's something that you could have been punished. And when you have this King Gambit that's sitting there with multiple boosts, I mean, that's how you can lose this game. And one of those things too where King Gambit is a Pokemon that can be kind of easy sometimes to play up against, but then also so difficult. So yeah. I think really, really well done on both. I'm then so curious with Gio how he's going to play this in the second game and how Benny's going to adapt. Because if you have that information of like, hey, he's not really willing to switch and he's going to go for it sometimes, I could try and close this out sooner. But then Gio can also take advantage of that.
There's also that give and take like you hinted at, Sierra, with choice items, with the choice specs, with the choice band, even the choice scarf basket Basket Legion on Benny's side, you do get a huge boost in one of your stats, whether it be attack, special attack, or speed. At the same time, you lose a lot of flexibility once you select those moves. Those trainers immediately mixing it up, though. We have the Sneasler and Golden Go from Geo instead of the Whimsicott and the Magmar there to support the King Gambit. An immediate change in strategy from Benny as well.
Yeah, this Magmar, when we've seen this Magmar, we've seen this Electabuzz, being able to redirect moves with this Follow Me away from something like this King Gambit is going to allow it to thrive just a little bit more, especially to this King Gambit. It does, since it is the Black Glasses set, it can go ahead and just Sword Stance. So you can easily just kind of switch something away after maybe a mandatory turn of protecting, since there is, you know, this fake out on the opposing end, but maybe next turn we could see a bit more of a setup. And you also get the opportunity to wait out for this Terastallization right away. That is going to be a Terra Steel on the Golden Go for Geo.
Removes that weakness to Dark type in case a Sucker Punch comes through right away, but no, a Protect straight away from King Gambit, and Magmar might have the chance to get off a Heat Wave.
Instead, it's just going to get hit, though it's, you know, still going to be in a fine position. It's not just the double protect, and also notably no Ake Out. Of course, that is then going to be normal stats with the White Herb going on forward, so Caesar doesn't have to worry about that. But now the follow-up. This Make It Rain is going to be doing a bit more damage. You have that Terra Steel Terastallization, but of course, Magmar, oh, that's so close. It's going to be hanging on. It's, of course, going to take that hit well, and well enough. Heat Wave ironed off in return. It's not the most offensive, but that's some really solid damage.
It is close, but unfortunately not close enough. Magmar gets a Heat Wave off there, which puts Sneasler in range for possibly a boosted Sucker Punch from this King Gambit. And importantly, the Sneasler on Geo's side will be acting first. If you do want to go for a Follow Me, that can protect the King Gambit from that close combat and give yourself the chance to go for something like a Sword Stance or just another attack with this King Gambit.
Golden goes swapping out, already having taken so much damage from this Heat Wave, and Whimsicott's going to hit the field instead, which definitely wouldn't appreciate one if there is going to be a target into that. But Magmar instead is just protecting on this turn. We had seen the protect from the King Gambit last time, so going for the double, that is a fail. It's only a 1 in 3 chance, but not going to be punished for that. Dire Claw instead into this Magmar. A little laugh as well. Maybe, you know, just kind of forgot, but hey, you're fine. I
think that's exactly what happened, Sarah. A bit of a misfire from Benny there. I think just forgetting that he protected the King Gambit that prior turn, because you don't really gain much from trying to go for a double protect on purpose there. Luckily for him, the Dire Claw into that Magmar meant that he didn't lose the King Gambit this turn, but he did lose the chance to gain some ground. Like, he could have gone for a Sword Stance or some kind of damage that turn, but instead, now you have to go for the Follow Me on this turn.
Yeah, Magmar, the second time around, the second go will go down. I mean, like, the failed protect, but no hit into it. It's essentially like hitting the double protect, right? This go around, though, Whimsicott into the King Gambit, going to be a lot of damage. No special attack drop this time, so we're not going to get a boost. And with that, the attack into the Sneasler won't be enough to be claiming that KO.
No KO just yet, but very well in Grassy Glide or Sucker Punch range from King Gambit. Kind of the lost opportunity to go for that Sword Stance on that turn, though. That would have been a KO on the King Gambit, or the Sneasler rather, as you can see. And now this Whimsicott still has its Focus Sash intact. Of course, cannot Terastallize anymore because that Golden Go has used up that Terastallization, but does have Protect, can keep itself safe from a possible fake out from this Rillaboom. But nope, Grassy Glide right off the bat. Sneasler will be knocked out.
Yeah, when you're staring down a Pokemon that can threaten so much in this King Gambit, that is a huge source of damage for your team. Just securing that definitely feels nice. Whimsicott still on the offensive, not going to give away a free boost, but now Sword Stance. This King Gambit is going to boost up itself. Of course, it has taken a lot of damage, so going on forward, I'm looking at this King Gambit more so in the Sucker Punches, which kind of puts us in the same spot. Incineroar, though, adjustment coming out from Geo. You do have access to a Fake Out going forward, but giving away an Intimidate, that's going to be a +3 King Gambit now for Benny.
I do like the prioritization of throwing those Moonblasts into King Gambit, though, because now, even though it is at +3 attack, you have 2 Pokemon that resist Dark type, which is the only type of move the King Gambit is carrying, and you have the Incineroar, which is threatening a Flare Blitz. You have Whimsicott that maybe 1 or 2 more Moonblasts can do the job. Benny can Terastallize it. It is the Fire Terra King Gambit, which actually is very nice defensively here. But if Geo opts to read that, this Incineroar still has access to Knockoff, which would be a big source of damage there into that King Gambit. And of course, removing those Black Glasses as well. And Rillaboom, not really a big threat here because, again, it is the U-turn set. Cannot threaten Incineroar with a high horsepower. And we have 2 Pokemon that resist grass on the field.
Yeah, and with this option of Fake Out on the opposing end, a Protect makes so much sense. so does this fake out that's targeted into it from Geo. Now we get to see the Encore from Whimsicott. Encore we get to see on a couple of different Pokemon. It can definitely trip people up. And now this Rillaboom is going to be locked into this Grassy Glide. And you had talked about the little damage this Rillaboom is going to do. And you can see that's plain as day.
I love that Encore. The Rillaboom there really wanted to U-turn out. That was a situation where this Rillaboom is not doing much on the field right now, and you don't necessarily want to, hard switch it out in case the Whimsicott targets that slot with a Moonblast or something. But now that it's locked into Grassy Glide, it will be doing negligible damage to these two Pokemon on the field. You broke the Whimsicott's Focus Sash. That's like not nothing at least, but Incineroar and Whimsicott should be able to take something like a Kowtow Cleave or Sucker Punch from even this +3 Black Class's King Gambit. And because the King Gambit's already taken so much damage, even with a possible Terastallization, a combination of Moonblast and Knockoff probably still does the job.
Yeah, maybe if we had seen the Terastallization come out just a little bit sooner so you weren't taking as much damage from Moonblast as you did, but hoping to try and make it past the turn to be able to just keep this King Gambit around for a little longer. Of course, okay, we're going to see the Encore. It's K.
That's so smart.
Now that we got the Terastallization, this Whimsicott can go ahead and priority move into this King Gambit, and it's one that's locked in. So you're looking for some damage output, but you're just going to fail that Protect instead. Flare Blitz. We even just get the KO. You're covered whether it Terastallized or not. Critical hit. This King Gambit, nothing going right for it. Great turn from Geo.
That's an insanely smart play there, knowing that either King Gambit does not Terastallize and you knock it out with Flare Blitz, or it does Terastallize and it probably survives Flare Blitz unless you crit it. But it's locked into Protect because it is no longer a Dark type, is no longer immune to those Prankster moves. So regardless of how that turn played out, that was a really heads-up play from Geo that kind of guaranteed this King Gambit's effect and the game would be mitigated. Now Ninetales comes out. The Rillaboom is locked into Grassy Glide. The Ninetales does not have its own Focus Sash. A Tailwind and a Flare Blitz here. Probably 2 turns of that exactly should be enough to close out this game for Geo and even the score at 1-1.
After 2 really different sets in this series, Ninetales, one hit KO, Flare Blitz will do the job. And this has been amazing to see these adjustments coming out from both. Such different leads in this game too. And wow, this has been such a great match so far. Of course, Rillaboom will end its Encore, but you got full HP, but still with such a Pokemon advantage for Geo. The forfeit makes sense. We've officially got a Game 3 on our hands.
Geo played that game really well. Even before that turn with the Encore Flare Blitz into that King Gambit as it Terastallized, making sure that you're getting damage into King Gambit is really important there because you don't really have a way to KO it from full, especially if it does go for that Fire Terra. But before Benny opted to use that Terastallization, you set yourself up for a position like that where you actually can threaten a KO with this Incineroar despite having to boost its attack even further.
It's really interesting how the middle and the end of that game played out, considering the beginning where it was a heat wave and Terastallization already spent from that Golden Go. But when we look at things and going where they go wrong, unfortunately, this King Gambit, you couldn't get enough mileage. You couldn't KO that Sneasler when you wanted to. Had there potentially been that Swords Dance a little earlier on, it's something that could have gone right. It also could have just gone wrong for Geo had either of those Moonblasts gotten the special attack drop. And that could have been a little unfortunate, but Geo played this so well and really just limiting any option that Benny had within that game.
You have to wonder too if Benny could have gotten a lot more mileage out of that King Gambit if he did opt to go for something like a Swords Dance or even just a Kowtow Cleave to get some damage on that turn when he failed the double protect. That was essentially a dead turn when you could have made a lot of forward progress because the only attack thrown Benny's way was into the protecting Magmar that turn. So maybe be a little bit more careful with remembering when we've protected, and that game can go a lot differently as well.
And that's also something to think about then going on to that Game 3. If you do think that one turn was the difference and it was just a little misstep in selecting the move, it's that maybe a game you try and run back because you know that you could have had it, but now we got the Game 3 on our hands and we're not doing any run back of that Game 2. We're switching it up. Super aggressive leads from both. Sneasler, King Gambit for Benny, Golden Go and Dragonite for Geo.
This is a cool scenario too because We saw Geo read the Terrestrialization and go straight for that Encore into the Dark type. This could be a scenario where Benny has the option to go for something like a Sucker Punch and Close Combat into Golden Go, and if he does, that covers the Golden Go Terrestrializing away from the Dark weakness. Dragonite, as a reminder, is the inner focus set, so despite Benny's Sneasler having access to Fake Out, it will be immune to any flinches, and there's no multi-scale that needs to be broken later on in this game. And so we're in a position here where I think this double protect we're about to see is probably pretty smart, considering it is two choice Pokemon on the other side of the field. You get to see what they lock into and then adjust your game plan from there.
Yeah, I feel like if you're quite unsure of what's gonna happen, that is the safe one, though I love the call out of maybe just going ahead and just that double into the Golden Go in case. Trick from the Golden Go to try and make sure that this Kingambit was locked into a singular move. That was a fun one.
It is fun. It also makes sure that you're not taking a Sucker Punch in that turn as well. It might be an option to swap out Golden Go now, because that going for the trick, at this point, okay, I can just Kowtow Cleave that slot instead and take the knockout, even though I can't Sucker Punch it. So you may want to preserve that Golden Go if you are Geo, but I do like that attempt on the first turn to try and throw off some of Benny's plans, because the Choice Specs Kingambit is a different pair of glasses and not one that is particularly effective for that Pokemon.
The prescription's all wrong.
Exactly.
He can't see it. Ain't gonna help him out. And if there is the switch, you can even try and call that. If there is something like that Whimsicott in the back, Benny being able to target into it and maybe just try and catch something offhand could be it. As confirmation, Golden Go is leaving the field and Whimsicott is going to join on in. So any priority move into that slot, not going to happen. Dragonite locked into that extreme speed, a lot of damage into the Sneasler. It's close combat, not very effective into that Whimsicott.
Close combat there, trying to cover for a possible Terrestrialization from Golden Go once again. Poison Touch does activate, could be big here because now this Whimsicott has been put on a timer. Kowtow Cleave also comes through into Whimsicott, and because of that Poison Touch, will be knocked out on this turn. So if you're Benny, you absolutely take that. Tailwind is no longer on the table for Geo, which means that if you get your Ninetales in, it will threaten this Dragonite before Golden Go can scare it away with the Make It Rain.
With the Poison Touch, it's funny because I hear some people like the paralysis and the sleep that you get off of like a Dire Claw is so much more effective, but being able to have that extra little status and that extra little damage when needed is so huge and going to be so big in that moment. That means there's not going to be any Tailwind, no Encores, and those Moonblasts as well did add up over time onto the Kingambit, and you've lost access to that as well. And Incineroar hitting the field, that is now that Defiant boost for the Kingambit.
The Defiant boost in this Sneasler is Terra Ghost, so if you want to dodge extreme speed damage, if you want to make sure you're not getting flinched by the Incineroar's Fake Out, that could be a really big deal here. Close combat into Incineroar, despite the -1 attack, will do a big chunk of damage, and because this Incineroar is holding the Assault Vest item, that almost necessitates the Grass-type Terra that you don't need with the safety goggles, so it is not Ghost Incineroar. It cannot Terrestrialize away from that fighting weakness into an immunity instead.
Sneasler will swap out, so we won't see the Terrestrialization there, but Geo will get a little bit more information of what Benny has. And Magmar, it was in the lead last time, hitting the fields now. Dragonite swapping out means that you do have the opportunity to reset what attack you want to go in, potentially with a little bit of more information of what could be the final move you want for the rest of the match. Kingambit again with this Protect. Now the Incineroar, that will be the knockoff into the opposing end. Magmar is going to lose that Eviolite, so it's going to be a little bit more squishy on the next turn.
That's really big, not only for the damage. The Magmar doesn't have any way to recover its HP, but the item being knocked off means it loses a lot of its bulk. That is a 50% boost to defense and special defense that have been lost now that the Eviolite is gone. So a nice switch there from Benny. I think that's a really smart defensive swap, especially considering Golden Go did come in, and Magmar will heavily resist that Make It Rain, but not much anymore because, again, that Eviolite is gone. A lot of defensive power has been lost. You will still be able to redirect, of course. I think one Make It Rain still won't be enough to KO this Magmar despite losing the Eviolite, and the Kingambit will be protected by any attacks from Incineroar by that Follow Me.
Terrestrialization in this match, and it's going to be into this Kingambit. So Kingambit into that Fire type. Want to make sure that, hey, Flare Blitz on the opposing end is not going to be doing the super effective damage that Geo might hope it is. If there is something like this Magmar going to be fallen on this turn, as now the center of attention is going to be taking a hit. Talked about the Make It Rain, and maybe not the most effective, but Shadow Ball into it instead will, in fact, pick up the KO. So Incineroar now has free access into this Kingambit, but Flare Blitz, that's not the damage that you necessarily want. It's only just a tickle.
It doesn't do too much, but what you've done by kind of forcing that terrestrialization, well, not anymore, because Golden Go just got knocked out. I was going to say, you've removed the resistance to Shadow Ball. I think Shadow Ball was a very smart lock there. The EV Light being knocked off also coming in really handy there, because I think Magmar pretty easily stomachs a Shadow Ball on that turn if it does still have those defense boosts. But now Dragonite comes in, and by, again, forcing that terrestrialization on the King Gambit, you have made King Gambit no longer resistant to extreme speed, and you have still preserved your own terrestrialization, so you can just turn into a normal type. You have that inner focus still, you can't be faked out by Rillaboom, and that Terra normal extreme speed now is a huge threat, because again, this Sneasler also can't terrestrialize either.
No, and that's exactly it. Before the Dragonite, you're actually going to have to make a really difficult decision with just the 2 Pokemon left. What is going to be the move that you use for the rest of the match? And if you didn't get terrestrialization out on that last turn, you were a threat no matter what you did. If the Sneasler goes into the Terra Ghost and you lose your Incineroar, you lose the game. And you're not necessarily damaging the King Gambit, but bringing that out, fantastic. Sucker into the Dragonite is not locking into extreme speed. Gets a lot of damage, but in return, will in fact pick up the King Gambit with a powerful Outrage.
You know what's stronger than extreme speed, Sierra? Outrage.
Let's go.
I really like that choice, and especially the choice not to terrestrialize there, because if you do become a normal type, you've made yourself no longer resistant to Grassy Glides as well. You do have to worry about this Sneasler. That was a big sucker punch there, and I think a really smart call from Benny. You know that if the Dragonite doesn't go for the extreme speed, then you're going to be able to, you know, probably get a big chunk of damage off there and allow your Sneasler to KO it. Because Geo did not lock into extreme speed and did not get a Tailwind up with Whimsicott, Sneasler should be the first thing acting here and should be able to knock out Dragonite with a Dire Claw, which will leave the game down to a 1v2, but if you're targeting Dragonite with your Sneasler, that means Incineroar gets a chance to swing at Sneasler as well, and can possibly bring this down to a Incineroar Rillaboom 1v1, and with no Woodhammer, or with no high horsepower on Rillaboom, that's probably in Incineroar's favor.
Yeah, offhand, when you look at the Dragonite now at the slower speed tier and being able to pick it off, it definitely is tempting, but you bring up a great point with that Incineroar Rillaboom, these two powerhouses of this format, with this Incineroar being out on top, it might be the one that could also come out on top in this match. Now we're going to get the late terrestrialization from Geo. We didn't see it on the opposing end, but instead, Grass type, making sure that a close combat can't go this way, but it could also make it interesting if we do get that 1v1 that we had talked about. Sneasler with that Protect. So if there is anything going that way, it's not going to happen, as Woodhammer from Rillaboom. That's not even enough for the KO.
Where does the Outrage go?
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's a 50-50. If it hits into the Sneasler, it's nothing, but instead into the Rillaboom. Choice Band is enough to bring Benny down to final Pokemon, and Geo finding a way to victory in this match.
Dragonite carrying Geo to victory once again. So cool to see him having this great success with that signature Pokemon. Of course, Sneasler is very strong in this metagame, but unfortunately, it cannot possibly 1v2 here. Even notably, Dragonite not getting confused after that second turn of Outrage, gets the full 3 turns to attack. There was still one small win condition there for Benny if the confusion came through, but Dire Claw will knock out Dragonite, and Incineroar gets the chance to Flare Blitz this Sneasler.
This Dragonite that has done so well by Giovanni Costa is going to be a key to victory to bring him into a top 4. The Choice Band is so clutch, and love to hear the crowd cheering to him on. What a win, what a set from these two trainers.
That was